Greetings and welcome to a Prayerful Pause. I'm Nancy Woodworth-Hill, a spiritual director and companion. Today we continue my series on forgiveness. So this is the fifth of a series on this topic. The biblical basis of forgiveness teaches us that forgiveness is part of God's character. And we examined a number of things that forgiveness is not, and explored aspects of what forgiveness is. And we took a deeper dive into the notion of the three faces of compassion, how on earth we manifest God's loving kindness. Now we turn to a tool that will support our efforts to forgive. And as the Reverend Dr. Rob Voyle states, when people can't forgive, it's either because they don't know how or because some part of them objects to forgiving, directly impacting the motivation to forgive. Voyle also notes that when we don't know how to forgive, we have four options. We can stay resentful as a self-protective blanket to prevent further pain. We can numb out our pain and become passionless and disengaged. We can avoid the context of where the injury occurred, and we can learn how to forgive. So forgiveness is a skill that we can practice and learn. Moses, standing before the entry into the promised land, famously said, "I set before you today life and death. Choose life." So one key factor in learning forgiveness is to understand the structure of resentment. As you bring to mind a resentment, it is helpful not to try to get rid of it or judge yourself for having it, but to be curious about the nature of your resentment. Notice that you experience it in the present moment. You're experiencing thoughts and feelings about something that happened in the past. It's rather easy to note what someone should or shouldn't have done. So resentment is a current demand that someone or something in the past should have been different. Note that the resentment itself is a present demand that the past should have been different. Yet, try as you might, you cannot change the past. Thus, forgiveness is something we do in the present to let go of or let be the demand that the past be different. Note again that forgiveness isn't denial that something bad happened. The challenge is to make a shift from demanding a person conduct themselves differently to preferring that they had conducted themselves differently. So this shift allows us to change the way we relate to what happened. This shift also allows us to affirm our values, which are often violated in the past hurtful event. And in affirming our values, rather than continue to negate or violate our values by focusing on our demand that the past be different. One challenge to this shift is holding on to our demand. Perhaps one can see the ineffectiveness of doing so by demanding that yesterday's weather be different. Ultimately, it's futile to engage in such a demand. At this point, I invite you to turn that demand into a preference. So I would have preferred that so-and-so's behavior would not have happened. I would prefer that something different happened, right? What is the value that you held then that supports your preference? Could be many, many different things. Is this a value that you would like to keep into the future? If it is, I invite you to imagine yourself in the future, seeking people who share this value. Imagine yourself offering this value to others and receiving this value from others. In doing this exercise, we are able to envision engaging this value in the future. Now, this runs counter to experiencing the disappointment and frustration that comes from living life demanding that things and people be or act a specific way. As Voyle says, preferring honors our values, giving us flexibility when things aren't the way we prefer. He also points out that forgiving and remembering is different than forgiving and reliving. We need to be able to remember the incident so that we can learn from the experience while not reliving the incident. Thus, forgiveness is about how we relate in the present moment to events and people in the past. There's another piece of the puzzle. Looking at our objections to forgiving, Voyle notes that they are usually of two types: safety objections and justice objections. Safety objections are situations in which a person is using resentment to provide for physical and emotional safety. I think of it as like hardening my heart. If I forgive them, they'll hurt me again. So in these cases, a person must be in a place of safety before forgiveness can be reached. Justice objections come in a number of forms. Well, they need to be punished for what they did. If I forgive them, how will others know they did a bad thing? If I forgive them, it would be like saying their action or inaction didn't matter. If I forgive them, they will do it again to someone else. In these cases, it's helpful to understand that these reasons to carry active resentments are ineffective and comes at a great personal cost. How many billboards or full-page newspaper ads would one need to purchase to get a message out? And you realize it just isn't going to work. So objections to forgiving must be satisfied or released. They cannot be overcome, they can't be overpowered, they can't be ignored. The path into forgiveness is to restructure how an incident is held in memory by inviting a demand to become a preference and to seek and satisfy objections. One more piece, and we'll explore this a little bit more next time. If you are unable to reduce your resentment below a 2, say on a scale of 1 to 10, so if you were to pick a particular resentment, give it a number from 1 to 10, work on it as a preference, and then see if you have objections to letting go. If you've done this and you cannot get below a 2, it may be grief and not resentment. So I look forward to continuing this next time.